Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. This is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. I am Matt West, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Special edition show for you this weekend. I am on the road in Florida, sunny, beautiful Florida. Of course, trying not to get arrested for any sort of copyright infringement of Disney. Apparently, if you just think about Disney, they'll try to send the secret mouse police and arrest you. So, that being said, I have prepared a best of edition for the show this week. First, we're going to talk to Chase Barber, founder and CEO of Edison Motors, an electric truck manufacturer that stands by this principle known as right to repair. In fact, there may be the only manufacturer in general in the automotive and truck space who truly stands behind that. Then we're also going to talk to Kimmy and Matt. Also Matt, by the way. I promise I'm not just talking to myself, but they are both from Colorado 4x4 Off-Road and Recovery. We're going to learn about how to safely recover a 4x4, especially as we're getting into spring here. We're going to get into summer. You might be wanting to take that Jeep, that 4Runner on the trails. This is going to give you everything you need to know to do it safely. So let's get into the show right here. We were talking a little bit about kind of what you think is wrong with the industry as a whole. You were talking about, suits investing in things and not willing to invest with you if you don't have some MBA in business or whatever, right? And you've run into that as a business owner now. You've got to see that side of the world. What's that like?
Yeah. Oh my God. The venture capital world it's oh my God. We have told every venture capital listen we talk to just basically shove it up their own. These guys are one of the things that's wrong with the world of these EV companies. And you've seen the founder of Nikola Motors. Mm-hmm. He was talking about how investors took hold of the company and it wasn't his thing that they wanted to do, but investors took hold of it, made crazy promises and warped the company and made them put in a bunch of people that didn't have experience, that drove the company into the ground. And I almost side with him on that point because I can see it, because people have tried to do the same thing to us. Mm-hmm. Different investors have approached Edison Motors saying, hey, we want to buy in 20-30% of your company. We like what you're doing. And I don't know about that, guys. And just give us 5 minutes. You talk to these people and you realize what is wrong with the world real quick. One guy, for example, said, you need to get all of your parts foreign made, all of them. Just get it all made in a foreign country, and it'll get you the cheapest price. Get it out there. No, that's not what we want. That's not how you control quality. And then other guys are like, hey, we need an exit strategy of 2-3 years. And we had a guy that said, it doesn't matter what you say. I want you to promise that you're going to be building 5,000 to 15,000 trucks a year within 2-3 years, 3-4 years. He's like, whether you can achieve it or not, we're going to promise that, because we're going to get that money. It'll get people excited. We'll use that money to build it up to look like we're scaling. We'll start just slamming out trucks, and it'll look like we're scaling up. And then we can IPO. We're going to be building 15,000-20,000 trucks a year. We'll pump those numbers up, and we'll get a ton of money at IPO. And that's not the way to do it, though. That's just lying to people to create a false sense of future profit, and you're skipping all of the important steps like research and development. I said, you got to go slow. You're building something new. You got to build 1. You got to build then 2. Now we're going to build another 8 trucks. Now that we've kind of in the final stages of prototype testing, we've learned a lot with our first truck. We'll build 8 to 10 trucks next year, and we'll really dial those in, as well as we're building a few pickup truck retrofit kits. We're going to dial them in. We're going to go slow, and we're going to do it right. That doesn't wow investors, but it makes a better long-run company, because you look at companies like Nikola Motors, who rolled a ton of trucks out, hundreds of trucks out, and they all had to get massive recalls. And I think most of all those trucks are still sitting there because the recalls were so big that they couldn't even fix them, and they just basically parked all of the trucks that they made Like, that's not a solid way to run a business. And yeah, Nikola is worth $40 billion. And they literally, you heard about that, where they didn't even have a working truck. They brought a truck up to the top of the hill. They released the brakes, pushed it down the hill, filmed a video like it was working, and then told all these investors that they had a working electric truck. They got like a $30-40 billion share valuation, raised billions of dollars on fake promises that their truck ran, and then fake promises that they were going to hit goals that they really just didn't achieve. And we had investors telling us to make fake promises to do. You could see that seems like what they're doing with Nikola, just so those investors could invest $20-30 million and then make that money back. Like, that's not a good product. That's not a good investment. That's not innovative. And then you got the government just throwing billions of dollars at EV, clean tech, startup companies that's going to things that aren't being delivered, aren't being produced. And it seems like a way to funnel people's money into their own pocket. And I'm not participating in it. And it makes raising investment money pretty hard. I'm still living in my parents' basement. We're still working in their backyard. We still driving old trucks that are breaking down, like old pickups, old cars. But I would rather live in my parents' basement for the next 3 years than take one goddamn penny of that money.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, so you're seeing this side of the business that I think even a lot of my listeners aren't aware happens. And even to me, hearing the scale of that and the scale that happens at is mind-blowing. And, how do you, and I know you're still, you're running the business, but how do you look at, like, keeping control of your business in that sense? Is the only way really to keep control of your company to not outsource to venture capitalists? Is that what you're saying?
You know what? We're working on, I like the crowdfunding. We did that to fund the business right at the start. We did 2 rounds of that. And then the fans of Edison Motors were the ones investing. And that, they were people that listened to what we were saying online and said, yes, I believe that's the right way to do it. Built from the ground up by people that know the product, that aren't selling it out, that it may take longer, but I'm willing to throw in $500, $100, whatever they were able to do. And then the company is actually owned by our fans, and there's no single large shareholder that can control anything other than myself and my business partner who started it. But there's nobody else in here but us, and we have our vision that we're going to achieve, and we're not going to let a venture. But that's almost how you have to do it. But that means that you don't have a lot of money. Like, we would be way more comfortable off. Like, I'll be honest with you. We could be very, very comfortable right now. Like, have you seen, I forgot the one EV company. I want to say Canoe, but don't quote me on that. Maybe someone I have to do some research. There was one EV company where what the CEO spent annually on his private jet maintenance and operating expenses. His private jet for the CEO operating expenses were more than the entire company's revenue. Like, why are you spending more on your private jet than your entire company makes? Like, that's not the time to have a private jet, guys. Like, you're just wasting money at that point. Holy.
Yeah, like, wow. And you're not cruising around on a private jet. You're investing everything probably back into your business. And I mean, you got to do this stuff on a kind of a tighter budget, like you were saying. And I love that you mentioned that you are fan funded. That to me is really cool. Is there a way for folks listening right now? Is there a way for people to go support you?
Not right now. They like a merch, or if they get like one of those pickup kit reservations kits, that helps a lot. We're dealing with issues. We're trying to get, so we raised $1.5 million in crowdfunding to do all of this development up until this point, and that $1.5 million has been getting us by this entire time. We tried to approach the government for crowdfunding, and they are just digging in their heels. They told us that they want a larger investor to own it, because then they could control, like, this is the government, the Securities Commission, telling us that we would be way more comfortable if a larger investor owned part of you, because then somebody's going to watch what you say and do, and you're not going to do anything foolish or say anything foolish. which a lot of it, I think, had to do with what we said on the MNP thing with that government grant scandal. We can get into that if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no investor that would have told us to do the things we did. They would have all told us, shut up, take the money, and shut up.
Back with Chase Barber from Edison Motors in just a minute. This is the best of the Automotive ADHD Show. Hey, if you're just joining me here on the Automotive ADHD Show, Matt West here, and last week I had Chase Barber, founder of Edison Motors, on this show, and after the radio show, we did a bonus podcast, and it was so good, I wanted to make sure you heard it here as well. So here is some excerpts, some of my favorite parts from the bonus podcast with Chase Barber. Wow, so tell me about the sort of the scandal that you exposed within the government, and I mean, it showed a massive conflict of interest, correct?
Yeah, there is a massive potential. You can assess for yourself. I'm just going to say everything's opinion because they've got real expensive lawyers.
Right, not legal advice, right? No.
No. Just for my personal experience, our lawyer that helped us out said to use qualifying words for everything. But so in my personal experience, basically, here's what happened. We submitted to, let's start at the very start. So the government of British Columbia hired this company, MNP, to recommend future grant fundings in the EV zero-emission vehicle space. So basically, they said, hey, how much money should we give out and where should that money go? And what kind of companies should receive that so that we can improve our zero-emission vehicles? And they paid MNP, this company, to write that report. MNP wrote it, submitted it, and then the government said, okay, well, you know what? We're also going to hire MNP to administer those grants.
Wow.
So they hired the company that recommended the grants to then decide which companies who submit grant applications are going to receive the funding and how much funding they're going to receive. And then, so we applied for one of those grants after that MNP actually administered. And then after that, MNP reached out to us, and we had no clue, never heard of MNP in their life. So I don't even know how they heard about us until we submitted the grant. And they reached out and said, hey, we would love to do grant writing proposals for you. And we would love to they do financial accounting and they do other things. And like for businesses, they're just a big accounting firm, or like a giant monopoly of an accounting, oligopoly of an accounting firm.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we want to handle all your accountants. And also we want to write your grant applications for you. Also, we administer grant applications for you. So in other words...
So hold on, back that up. So the people who administer the applications also write the applications?
That's right. If you pay them a 20% success fee, they will write applications for you. They just wanted 20% of the amount of money that they gave you you got in the grant. Now, they don't always do the same grant that they administer. They said, oh, well, we technically don't write grants that we administer, although we've got some serious doubts about that. But it was very much like, hey, you need to hire us for huge fees. You should hire us for this. If you're with us, we award grants. Hint, hint.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, just to think about what it takes for that to even happen in the first place, right? Now,
here's the other thing too. The government agency that is giving all this money out, guess which company does the financial audits of the government agency giving this money to the company to then spend? The same company that's spending the money is then auditing the Legislative Assembly to see how they spend the money that they're getting to spend. Like, what the amount of conflict of interest in that is just insane. And it's not just us. You see the EV world, like, how much of this EV world, like, have you seen, like, the thing with Stellaris or Stellantis or anything like that? Like, you start looking into it, and it is absolutely criminal. Like, Stellantis, the government of Canada gave them, don't quote me exactly on the numbers, but it was around $14 to $16 billion in funding to build an EV battery plant. That was through funding and grants and incentives. And then you see things like Stellantis gave a performance incentive of $2 billion. Then they gave another dividend of like $4 billion back to shareholders. And then they did like a share buyback to give money back to shareholders by propping the value of another $5 billion. And if you add up the amount of money that they gave in performance incentives, share buybacks, dividends, it almost equals the amount they got to fund their battery production facility of taxpayer money. So basically, they're like, hey, here's a bunch of money to build your production facility. And they're like, wow, thank you. We'll build that with this money, but we'll take this other money and give it back to our shareholders. So in other words, it's just going back to other, like, and then the manufacturers in North America start about China, and they're like, well, China gets subsidized. Well, we subsidize ours. How come the Chinese car costs $20,000 for that EV Chinese car, and then ours costs $60,000 to $80,000? Oh, maybe it's because they actually use the money for research instead of share buybacks.
Yeah, well, and that, and I mean, even
that's exactly what's happening, but like it feels to me like that's what's happening.
Well, yeah, and you've got quite the position to be able to see it kind of on a ground level where a lot of folks don't get that visibility with it. And you're not afraid to talk about it, too, which is also something I think a lot of folks maybe, are a little more hesitant. Like you were saying, the shareholders telling them, hey, maybe back off. Just take the money, right? And
well, if you had a large investor, any large investor that was about the money would have said, hey, how about you shut up, pay the 20%, and then take it. So that's 20%. We'll do a $10 million grant. You give them $2 million, and then you put $8 million in your pocket, and that's an extra $8 million for you instead of going down the road you did, which exposed it. And then guess what? We still haven't gotten a single grant. Like Edison Motors has not taken a single dime of taxpayer money because I'm not participating in that corrupt system. It's just, but then again, it also feels like the other part is that now, because we're not, you see, government is now giving money to our competitors who are playing these kind of weird games with taxpayer money, and now their trucks are being subsidized and purchased. So now we have to compete. And it's so frustrating. We are the only truck manufacturer in British Columbia, Canada, building electric semi-trucks, heavy vocational electric semi-trucks. And now our government is funding our foreign competition. Like, we have to compete against our government funding our competitors. And you're like, this is so frustrating that I'm paying taxes to fund my competitors' trucks.
Wow. Well, and remember, this is the same government telling you, oh, yeah, it's all 100% about the environment. 100%, which if, like what you're saying, what you see happening on the ground level, if that's happening, that to me sounds more like it's about lining somebody's pockets than anything to do with the environment.
It's exactly what it feels like. Like, I'll give you one crazy example for grants that looked into. It was Eagle Graphite Mine. So a mining company was listed. Remember that report I said that they wrote for funding recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
That company, Eagle Graphite, hired MMP to do their financial audits as a publicly traded company, which cost thousands upon thousands of dollars to do these audits. And they then recommended them in this thing. Then they received a grant for like $300,000 for this mine because they said graphite can be used in batteries. Why don't we fund a graphite mine? Then Eagle Graphite then took that and they put out like share release and be like, our project is backed by the government. Look how solid our mine is. Even the government is funding our mine to make shareholders think that that mine was a very solid investment. So we spent $300,000 to a company to do research who then said, look, the government's funding our mine. We can raise money for our mine because now the investors think the mine is more likely if the government's actually funding the mine. And then guess what happened? The company went totally bankrupt and everybody lost their money or whatever. People lost a ton of money. But like that's the level of hire the company that does the grants, that does the recommendations, and then promote that, even though it wasn't the government actually giving the money. It was a private company that they hired. And being on the inside and seeing all these things happen is so frustrating. And I don't know. I don't know what else to say. But it's once you're on the inside, a lot of all of these things, you can tell it's not about the environment. They say it is. It's about trying to find ways to put money in their own pocket.
Yeah. Wow. And again, I appreciate you being vocal about it and saying it, because someone's got to say it. And it takes some cojones, I think, to go out there and say it when you're, like you said, the government, well, now they're subsidizing your competitors and foreign competitors at that too. So no, I think there's really, what you're saying is really important. And I think what people need to do, if you're listening to this right now, is go over to your website and go get some T-shirts or do something to support Edison Motors, because you're playing definitely, the harder game. You're saying, hey, we're not going to take that funding because it goes against our morals, and you're not willing to cave on your morals just for the sake of, leaping that extra stone forward, So I think, if you listening to this agree with what Chase is saying, you got to do what you can to support a company like this, because we need more guys like Chase. We need more companies like Edison. So now, Chase, I want to shift the conversation here too a little bit and talk about, and it's still tangentially related to some of the things going on in the industry, but let's talk a little bit about right to repair and why you're so passionate about that and why that comes through in every little aspect of the design of your trucks.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of right to repair. I believe that I think a lot of the middle class is getting screwed over. And I know this from the trucking industry, so I know it's in farming or heavy equipment, but let's just say trucks, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be an owner-operator, could build a good life for his family. The first truck we ever bought when we started our business, we bought it for $5,000, truck and trailer. It was a 1969 Kenworth. We put that to work, and we still actually work it. I went out and picked up some with it the other day. But the guy we bought it off of, Bob Murphy, bought it brand new back in the day, and he drove one truck until he retired. He repaired it, he worked on it, and that one truck got him through the entire career. He bought it for $18,000, and he kept it for 30 years of hauling logs, for almost 40 years of hauling logs.
Wow.
And that was an example of what a middle class could do. See, it used to be as an owner-operator, you would buy a truck, and you'd talk to the old-timers, and that was a way to a middle class, upper middle class even, where you could give a family a really good life, because you buy the truck, you make the payments, and then once the payments are gone, well, now you've got a truck that you can operating for the next 15, 20 years. Now that extra, with a new truck, payments around $5,000 a month. So that's an extra $5,000 a month that those small businesses could put in their pockets. And they were reliable, they worked, you could work on them yourself. But now these new trucks are getting so expensive and so impossible. So when we were growing our trucking company, obviously people thought we were crazy, and we thought we were crazy with that old 1960s truck. Like, what are you doing with a 50-year-old truck out here working every day? We thought, yeah, that's probably true. We should buy a new one. And then all of a sudden, we worked that truck and the other truck, and then we realized that some real funky stuff was going on that was making me upset as an owner-operator.
Next, we're talking 4x4 recovery safety with Kimmy and Matt from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery on this best of edition of Automotive ADHD.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
Yes, it is. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. I have a really exciting couple of guests for you today. This is really cool. We are talking about off-roading, and we're talking about what happens perhaps when sometimes off-roading doesn't go the way you planned it, at least. Because if it doesn't, you're probably going to be calling these guys. Now, my next guests have played a part in thousands of trail recoveries for a tremendous nonprofit right here in Colorado. It is Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. Kimmy McBride is the organization's public affairs officer, and also joining me is Matt, and I promised I would do my best not to mess up the name, Ballage, owner of On Trail Training. Matt, did I butcher that too bad?
Close enough.
Close enough? Okay, that means I butchered it. Awesome. Well, anyway, Kimmy, Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Matt.
Awesome. And it might get confusing with two Matts here on the show. So we'll
That's all right.
it's a good name, by the way. Ask me how I know.
I know.
So let's talk a
Don't
little.
call me Matthew.
Oh, right. Now yours is with two T's, right?
Yes.
2 T's. Okay, I have met the rare Matt with 1 T, and
Yeah.
you got to watch out for those guys. I don't know. There's something up with them. But let's talk a little bit before we talk about Colorado 4x4 rescue and recovery. Which is it's just a nonprofit, by the way, which when I was looking into this, I found you guys. I think I'd found you guys on your YouTube channel. And I didn't even realize it was a nonprofit until I started doing some digging. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. We need to talk about this on the show. But before we do, Kimmy, you first. Give me a little bit of your background and then some of what you do with Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery.
Sure. So I my big kid job, I'm a project manager at a hospital. So lots of logistics and such. I've been an EMT for over 10 years now. So during COVID, I bought my Jeep and wanted something to do. And this seemed like the best way to kind of marry those backgrounds and interests, and connected with the org. And then last year, got more involved and stepped into the PIO role. So all sorts of the social media, going out in the field and capturing some footage and getting to talk to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Now you're on a radio show here in Southern Colorado, too. Yeah. So it's funny how that works, right?
That's wild. Yeah. I was on the news on the East Coast over Christmas randomly. The Today Show called. That was wild. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, and I'm glad you're here. I don't know if I have Today Show numbers, but we'll try. We'll try on that. Now, Matt, I want to ask you as well a little bit about your background too. You do some other work outside of Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. You've got on-trail training. Tell me your background, and then let's go into what on-trail training does.
So my background with this, it started back in summer of 2000. Moved to the Vail Valley. Was beginning a lucrative career as a ski bum. And that summer I saw a Jeep guide company driving around, and I said, they pay people to go do that. So called them up the next day, and they said, yeah, you've been off-road before? Oh, yeah, grew up western Pennsylvania, used to do it all the time. Okay, come on in tomorrow, we'll train you. The guy that trained me had started at the job 2 weeks before me. He knew where the trail was. That was about the extent of my training. Did that for, 12, 13 years. Worked as an owner-operator for a while, had my own vehicle that I'd subcontract out to a couple of the different guide companies in the valley. Got out of that, and I kind of had this, well, now what moment. I moved down to Evergreen, started a family down here, and had always seen a need for instruction for this stuff. So I wanted to get a little education for myself. I didn't want to just go off of my experience, and, there's a broader world out there. I got hooked up with a group called the International Four-Wheel Drive Trainers Association, I4WDTA. That was started by a guy named Bill Burke, who operates on the Western Slope. We're just celebrating our 20th year this year. I wasn't around for all of them. Bill did a lot of heavy tank recovery in the Army, was doing heavy tow, riding flipped tractor trailers as a job and as a hiking guide on the side. And he would see people out trying to use their winches and have absolutely no idea what they were doing with them. So kind of a little light bulb moment for him, pretty similar to what I had. He started training, and there was no real standard set for it. So he founded the association to, one, have a network of trainers out there that we can all call and have work with us. I have one of them hanging out on my back porch right now as we're talking. He's in from Alabama. And two, to really set a standard and have kind of a collective thought process with this. So we bounce ideas off each other constantly when new products, new techniques come out, all that good stuff. He got together then with a fellow named Chris Cole, who kind of formed the academic half of it. And to become a member, you need to go through what's called a TFC. It's a testing for certification. It's a week-long process that we typically have about a 30% pass rate for. So it's not a show up, congratulations, here's your certificate. This year we'll have 40 examining instructors for, I think we're at 12 candidates showing up. So you have almost a 4-to-1 ratio of eyes on you. It's a pretty intense week. it's one of my favorite weeks of the year because I get to sit back on the fun side of it. But it's been a really great group to be a part of. I got on trail training going right about the same time Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery was coming up. And we had our tents next to each other in an event, way back. And kind of started chatting with them. And yeah, we should continue this conversation a little more. It's kind of a real good outlet for what I was offering. They had a great need for it, little peanut butter and jelly. Here we are 10 years later.
Wow. And I think that makes a lot of sense when you look at, and we're going to talk about what Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery does, but that makes a ton of sense when you think about the idea of training people to be safe on the trail and recover vehicles safely, because, look, anybody can go out and, buy a Jeep, throw a winch on it, and not have any idea what they're doing. And I would even argue that is amplified now with social media. You get people who want to be an influencer and say, "Oh, I'm a recovery guy. I can go grab a kinetic rope and pull someone out of a ditch. Oh, that makes me a recovery guy," right? No, it doesn't.
Yeah. We wind up fighting a lot of that, and it creates a lot of bad habits and bad practices. I was just on a call last night with some members that are planning a 600-foot recovery of bringing a rolled Jeep down through a scree field to get it back onto the road. And it's missing wheels. It's sitting on its door in a creek right now. And, want to get it out there is, one, keep our people as safe as they can. And two, keep the environment as safe as we can and do as little impact to it as we're out there. But we gotta get in there and do the stuff, or it's gonna stay there and be a part of the landscape.
Right. Now, and of course, we want to preserve the trails, and by preserving the trails, one of that is not leaving derelict vehicles down an embankment off of a trail, too, because you got all sorts of stuff. You got gasoline, oil, coolant, stuff that you don't want in there, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, now, Kimmy, I want to ask you here now a little bit specifically about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. What exactly, we touched on it briefly, but give me sort of the elevator speech, then in a nutshell, what Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery does and how it started. Because it didn't start out as a nonprofit. It's sort of grown to that from just a sort of a grassroots endeavor, right?
It sure did. So, Matt, you can chime in too, since you were around when this kicked off and I was not. This is our 10th year anniversary in August. We're really excited that actually all of the founders are flying in for our banquet. Matt, you better be there.
Yeah.
And so it'll be really fun to get everybody back in the same room. But it was started by a couple guys who saw the need, right? Lots of, and this is like 2013, 2014, when Facebook and social media kind of became a thing.
Okay, and Kimmy, I ran myself out of time. Let me have you hold that thought. We're going to get to that right after the break. We're going to get the background of Colorado 4x4 and Recovery, and then we're going to talk about being safe on the trail. And you don't want to miss this. Don't miss a minute of this show. We're going to be right back here on Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere. This is the best of the Automotive ADHD show. And you are listening to the Automotive ADHD show, heard around Southern Colorado on the radio, several great radio stations to catch this show on, and as a podcast around the world. Hey, remember, you can also send your car sounds into the show. I play listener-submitted car sounds right here. Now, before the break, I was talking to some great folks from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. Matt, Kimmy, welcome back to Automotive ADHD.
Thanks.
Let's talk a little bit here. Now, Kimmy, before the break, I was asking you about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery's background and how it started. Let's pick up right there.
Yeah. So 2013, 2014-ish, Facebook was kind of becoming a thing, a big social media platform, right? And so a couple guys saw the need to kind of form a Good Samaritan group. They started seeing kind kind of an uptick in niche, kind of like Matt's training. There's a niche for this for sure, to go out and do vehicle recovery and rescue these people who broke down on trail, had an oopsie on trail, accidentally rolled, right? And so that became kind of a Good Samaritan Facebook group. And how long after, Matt, did we switch into nonprofit status?
It was about a 3, maybe 4-year process. Yeah, the first one was Craig Lehman, one of he was the guy that got everything together. He'd gotten a buddy of his had broken down on a trail called Red Cone. And by the time Craig and, they got enough people together to get up there, they got to the truck and it was stripped. Tires were gone, winch was gone, radio, lights.
Wow.
Everything that could be unbolted was gone. So that was kind of hey, there's a better way to do this. We can get people up there quicker. And yeah, in the early days, it was just a Facebook page and, hey man, I got stuck on this trail. Who's going to come get me? And throw their hands up. And that led to some not so great recoveries. And that was about when Craig and Matt Ratter and I had gotten in contact, and that's when things started going in a little more positive and professional direction with the
more organized.
Yeah, a little bit. It was very, very Wild West in those days. I had an admin threaten to kick me off the page for saying, "Yeah, you shouldn't really be doing that way." That was different time and place.
Well, and you've moved from that now to being the only 4x4 group recognized by Colorado Search and Rescue. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, we cover the entire state, so which is a blessing and a curse, right? We have almost 140 active members, but the bulk of our population is along the Front Range, so that leads to some pretty long drive times out to some of the rural spots, which are often where some of the really amazing trails are, like the one Matt was talking about that we're working on to go get that roll Jeep in a couple weeks is going to be a long, strategic, pretty intensely planned recovery, just for orchestration of bodies and logistics, and then the actual recovery itself. So we've had almost 800 members rotate through in the last 10 years, which is wild. And like I said, we cover the entire state. So we are all volunteer and donate our time and energy, and all of our resources too. Kind of unlike a traditional search and rescue team, right? We focus on the vehicles, but we also don't get county and state funding for this. We have the support of CSAR and some amazing partnerships with the U.S. Forest Service, various county law enforcement officers. But we're kind of our own little niche, and nobody quite knows what to do with us.
But the fact is, you guys are there, and you are there to help when things go sideways, or in some cases, literally upside down on the trail. You guys are the people that come out, save folks, get the vehicles, recovered, and all of the above. How can people? You said you've got somewhere you've had 800 members kind of go through the organization. How can people get involved? If we got a guy listening right now who says, hey, I've got some good equipment and I'm willing to go get some training and get certified with you guys, how can I get involved with that?
We keep an eye on our social media. We post out when we do new member sessions. So twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, we'll do a new member cohort. And so that entails a couple meetings. I think our director of training or former director of field ops, Brant, does a ton of work and a ton of hands-on with the entire cohort. They do 10 ride-alongs with us in the field. So 3 are kind of going and just observing. 3 are like trail driving, and they bring a vehicle and implement that. And then the last 4, I believe, are like hands-on. All right, you're in charge. How should we do this? Let's talk through it. Let's kind of teamwork our way through this recovery and give them that onus. And part of that training is everybody takes Recovery 1 and Recovery 2 with Matt and on trail training. So that's something that leadership and the org values, that education and credentialing and doing things safely and slowly. We get a lot of guys who come up to us at events and they're like, where's your YouTube channel? I want to see like the cool, fast things you do. And we're like, well, it's actually like really boring sometimes. What we condensed to like a 3-minute clip was like a 12-hour day. And we cut it to the 4 seconds where you see the vehicle move on the winch, but you don't see all the rigging and conversations and teaching and discussions that go in, even down to like what gear we bring. Matt does a ton with us about the quality of gear and what you're looking for and kind of our minimum standards for what we do, how we operate. Everybody's seen the social media video of the guy who put a kinetic rope around the tow ball and tried to yank, and the ball went backwards through the windshield. Like, we don't do that. We don't play that game. There's a lot of small things that you wouldn't think would be like dangerous. And we spend the time with Matt and Brian Lott, who's another certified I4WDTA trainer, to go through those and talk about it and really learn why we do the things we do and why we're so slow and strategic. And it's kind of like, so again, I come from EMS, but if you ever work with medevac, it's 3 to go, 1 to say no. So it's that whole team thing of like, we're all on the same page here for safety. This is what we're doing. Everybody back up. And it's definitely a collaborative team approach. And we don't really have a place for the cowboys right now. We're not the Wild West anymore.
Again, my guests are Matt and Kimmy from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. And real quick, Kimmy, how can people find out more about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery? And perhaps what's that phone number, too, if we just want to throw that out there if they need to call it?
Yeah. So the phone number is 720-722-1204. That is the best way to reach us. We do have to do a phone intake to get a full grasp of the situation, kind of like when you call 911. They need to know all the details so we know to send the right people, gear to the right spot. And then our website is co4x4rn as in Nancy r.org. All of our social media is on there, and tributes to our partners, some of our history. Our org historian has written a very detailed blog series for us. If you want to know more about where we've come from, why we've chosen to go this route. And there is a Facebook group out there that is Colorado 4x4 Rescue, and that is not us. We are Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery.
And Matt, one last thing from you too. How can people find your company as well, On Trail Training? How can they get that extra layer of knowledge on what they need to do?
Best ways right through ontrailtraining.com. You can register for classes directly on there. The next round of classes will be available the beginning of August on the website, and those will be for September and October, and then that'll round out the season for me. So
now we're going to keep this discussion going on the podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about trail safety and preparedness so you can avoid a situation where you got to call these guys. Find that right here after the show. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever fine shows and mine are downloaded. I'll talk to you back here on the radio next week.